How are you and your team with difference?
One of these things is not like the other.
When it comes to teams, difference can either be a challenge or, if you know how, can be your strength. So why is it that some teams struggle to embrace difference while others do it really well? Let's take a look. So when I ask, how are you and your team with difference? That's a bit of an unfair question, really, because in the context of teams, at least, most people are likely to say, I'm fine with difference, I'm open-minded, I welcome diversity. So my question here isn't really how you feel about difference, it's more about how you do difference. You can have the most diverse team in the world. Different perspectives, diverse strengths, experiences, opinions, worldviews. But if you don't know how to weave those diverse elements together, you're either going to miss the opportunity that presents or end up in a mess of conflict and fragmentation. When we hear that someone has a different view from ours, we basically have three choices. Choice number one, don't rock the boat. This one's all about valuing peace and harmony over debate. Now that might come from the belief that relationships are so fragile, so delicate, that disagreement and debate really are the fast lane to relationship breakdown. Or it might come from the belief that rocking the boat is a surefire way to lose your job, or at least end up in Siberia. Now I've worked in cultures, I've been in teams where this set of beliefs is very firmly entrenched, and perhaps for good reason. People might have already experienced the repercussions of rocking the boat, and so everyone learns to just pull their head in. It just doesn't feel safe. And so changing that belief is going to take a bit of time, and certainly some strong leadership. Choice number two, dump and run. So this one is all about blurting out your point of view, but then basically holding your hands up in the air and saying, I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel. Now, if you have some people in the team taking the dump and run approach, that can leave others biting their tongue and, well, not rocking the boat. Refer choice number one. Or it can trigger others to do exactly the same thing, at which point you have what we facilitators like to call a pile of opinions expressed, but no one taking responsibility for finding a solution. As a result, either the loudest voice wins, or the most senior person has to swoop in and make a call, assuming that is people haven't thrown their toys out of the cot by now and left the building. Choice number three, play the what's possible game. Okay, so as you might have guessed, given choices 2 and 3 were pretty ordinary, teams that are great with difference learn to step wholeheartedly into what I call the what's possible game. The what's possible game is all about starting from the belief that diversity of thought and difference is an absolute goldmine, that no one of us has the best answer, and so the whole point of a team is to bring diverse perspectives together to come up with something really special. After all, as one business owner once said to me, I don't pay 8 salaries for one opinion. Now, as appealing as the what's possible game sounds, let's not underestimate how difficult this can really prove to be in practice. It's one thing to have the intention of bringing multiple perspectives into the mix. It's another thing altogether to know how to do it. So let me share with you a couple of things that, in my own experience, are essential for any team wanting to play the what's possible game. The first is a way of canvassing and hearing a range of perspectives. The second is knowing how and when to shift into a joint problem-solving mode. So if we take a look at the first of those, canvassing and hearing a range of perspectives, this has to go further than simply asking the question, does anyone have a different point of view? What I find much more useful is setting an expectation, a quota even, of how many different perspectives we need to hear from. You might say, let's get at least 3 different views or voices on this before we move on. Or let's allocate 30 minutes to collecting as many different views as we can. There's an important shift going on here, right? A shift from inviting difference to actually expecting it. And that's important. Now, doing this is a whole lot easier if you're not just all sitting there and looking at each other. Instead, Choose some kind of method for capturing the range of views visually, which could be as simple as using post-it notes on a whiteboard. Whatever tool you use, what you're doing is allowing the perspective to exist separately from the person who voiced it. Of course, getting a range of views expressed is one thing. Making sure people have actually heard and understood those views is another. And one way I like to do that when I'm facilitating conversations is to ask people to put a thumbs up or perhaps a dot on each point once they feel they've understood it. Or to do the opposite, ask them to mark the ones they feel they need to better understand before we can move on. That way, you know where to focus your time and energy. Okay, so now we've got a team canvassing and hearing a range of perspectives. The second thing is knowing when and how to shift from all that canvassing and hearing to the problem-solving phase. In my experience, the teams that do difference really well are the ones who know when to change gears and say, okay, we've got a range of views. Now, given what's emerged, how could we approach the problem at hand? And this is where everyone steps into the cockpit, as it were, rolls up their sleeves and starts developing ideas. I reckon the key here is having a language for asking everyone to make that transition. For some reason, I've got an image of a tour guide in an art gallery holding up an umbrella to keep everyone together. Every team needs an umbrella because it's always hard work if you've shifted to the ideas phase, but you've still got 2 or 3 people back in the canvassing stage. Some teams find a tool like Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats really helpful here because it's a super clear way of shifting modes. Personally, I prefer simply labeling the phases up front, time boxing them, and then guiding everyone through that sequence. So there's a couple of things that might help you and your team to play the what's possible game. But technique aside, it's worth taking a step back and asking, what does our team believe about the role of difference? Do we see it as a problem, or do we see it as a strength? And which of the 3 choices do we seem to make in the face of difference? I reckon that's a great couple of questions to start with as a team, because the shift into the what's possible game really does have to start with awareness. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, as always, please tell YouTube by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons so that these videos find their way in front of others just like you. See you next time.